in this lesson we will complete a full user CRUD operation. So we will have a list of users. We can add user like Tom, Cat. Oh, by the way, we have some basic UI validation also. So if we put valid information, we will be able to insert this. So his age will be 18. We will be able to update this any property. So this will also work. Here you can see the updated data, and we will also be able to delete the data. There is a confirmation dialog. So if we don't delete it, nothing happens. If we confirm this, the user is deleted. So we will build this from scratch. So let's start creating the project first. So go to the command palette and open your directory where you want to create the project, and run this command npx create next app, and I'm using the version 13.4, so add 13.4 and press enter. Now it's asking about the name of our project. I will name this user app. You can name it however you want. I will use TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind CSS, no. We'll use app router, and we won't customize anything, and it will create the project. Our project has been created, so let's go to the directory. So in this case I will go to user app and I will open it in VS Code. So code dot, it will open the project in my Visual Studio. Now let's bring the command palette here. So let's run the project and see if it works or not. So run npm run dev. And let's open this in browser, localhost 3000, and here is our default project template. Now we will install some libraries. So first let's stop the project, clear the command palette, and let's enlarge this. Now first we will install Daisy UI in our project. So let's go to daisyui.com and go to their installation guide. So we have to run this command to install Daisy UI, npm -d Daisy UI at latest. Here we'll run this. Okay, now let's see what we need to do. We need to add this plugin in our TypeScript config file. So let's copy this. In your TypeScript config.ts file, here there's a empty array of plugins. Let's add this, save this. We will also add a theme. Here we will use this cupcake theme. So let's copy this and paste it after plugins, and I will remove first two options. We will only use cupcake. So let's save this. We will also have to add this data theme in our HTML tag. So let's copy this and go to layout file. Under app folder you will find layout.tsx, and here there is a HTML tag. Here we will paste it. Let's save this. Let's also adjust our global.css file. I will remove these two properties. We don't need these two variable, so we will also remove it for dark mode as well. And then inside the body we will remove the background property, and let's add some padding for the body for say 1 rem. And let's save this. Now let's run our project and see how it is now. So npm run dev. So we can reload this. Okay, there's nothing broken here. So let's go to VS Code again and stop the process. We'll install some libraries now. First we'll install Prisma for our database ORM. So let's install this first. Okay, Prisma has been installed. After installing this, we'll have to run npx prisma init to initialize the project for Prisma schemas. So let's run the project, and it has generated Prisma folder with a schema. Now I will add a model here. Let's say user, and it will have ID, which will be type of int, and it will be auto generated, and it will be a primary key. This attribute means primary key, and this is default value, which means it will be actually auto incremented, and we don't have to provide the value for it. And then we have name column, which will be type of a string, and it won't be nullable. And there's another email property, email, and it should have be unique. So you can't insert duplicate email, or you can insert users with duplicate email. User will also have age, which is type of integer, and there's a is active field, and we have provided the default value true. If you want to know more about connecting local database and how it works, I will put a link in my video description. I have already talked about it in my earlier videos. So if you are curious, you can go to the video and learn it. So let's save this. Now let's go to the env file. Here we will have to modify the connection string properly, so that our data is stored successfully in the local DB. So here you will have to put your username and your password, and then we will use localhost, and the port is same. You don't need to change anything here. Then here you will have to put your DB name, or I will name my DB user app, and we can use a dash here, and the schema public is good. Now I will change the user and password here. You put your own username and password. Let's close all this. Now let's try to migrate the table in our local DB. So run this command npx prisma migrate dev and see if everything is okay or not. So I will name this initial migration. My database has been created, and let's move forward. Now let's install the client for Prisma. So npm I add prisma/client. Run this command, and we'll need this library to talk to our DB. After this, I will install Axios to call our APIs. So let's install Axios. And the last library I want to install is React hook form. So install it. We'll use it for form binding and validation. So now we have installed all our required libraries, and let's move on. Now let's create an API folder. So we'll start building API first. API, and here I will use users folder, and let's add the route file. So new file inside users, so route.ts. Okay, first let's add the file to get all the users. So this will be the function or API which will return all the users. So let's import the missing imports. So import Prisma from Prisma client, and we will also have to import the next request and next response. So after this, import next request and next response from next/server. I missed one step actually. I didn't create a single Prisma instance file. So let's add this inside the Prisma folder. So let's add a new file called db.ts, and here if you search best practice for instantiating Prisma client with Next.js, you will end up in this page, and you can copy this code snippet and paste it here, and let's save this. Now let's go to here, route file, and import Prisma from our db file. Now let's save this. Actually this get function is not doing much thing, it's just getting all users using this find many function, and then it's just returning the users. Now we will add the API for creating user, and it will be something like this. So export async function post, and it will have a request. First we are parsing the request in this constant, and then we are creating a user using this Prisma instance, and we are passing the data. I have already explained this in my earlier videos. I will put the link in the description, you can check that out. So our route file inside the users is done. We can save it and close it. Now to update, delete and get single user, we will have to create a special folder, id parameter. So this is the syntax. Id is enclosed with square brackets, and in this folder we have to add this route file. Now we can copy this to import from here, because we will need this here. Let's save this. Now to get a single user, our API will look something like this. It will be type get, and after receiving the request there will be a parameter. Which will hold the ID and which will be type of string. Now we are getting the user using this find unique function. We are parsing this parameter into integer before binding it to higher condition, and if the user is null or not found, then we are returning that the user not found response, and if the user is found, then we are returning the user in JSON format. So that's it for getting single user. Let's save this, and now let's add API for deleting user. So the API will be something like this. It will be type of delete, and the signature of the parameter is same as this one, and up to this point it's very much similar to the get function, but here to delete we will use this delete function for Prisma, and this is the same condition like the get one. So it will delete the user, and we will return an empty object as response. Now let's add update function. Now let's add update API. So here, so this is the update function. Let's minimize this. So here you can see that the signature of the parameter is same as the other two, so nothing new up to this point. But after this, if the user is not null, and then we are parsing our request in this body constant, and then we are calling this update function, and we are passing the where condition and the data. So we are actually for this simple demo, we are only updating email and age and nothing else. We should update the name also. So name body dot name, save this. Now I think we are done with this route, so let's close this too. Now let's add all the markups. So inside the F folder I will add a folder components, and we will add a file here. We'll call this user form.tsx. Now here I will use a code snippet tool, so RAFC will generate this basic component. Now this will be a client component because we will have button click interaction, so let's use client, and then we will receive ID and on user update event here. So let's add the interface for that. So this is simple interface. Let's add this user from Prisma client. So let's format this, and now let's add these props here inside the braces. I will use a state variable for updating the user list or updating the state of this form. So let's bring this use state, and when the user has been changed, we will set this true. We will also need some properties from this use react hook form. So we will need register for binding the properties. We will need handle submit to submit the form, and we will need errors to show the errors of the form inputs, and we will reset the forms when user has submitted the forms. We will need to fetch the user if the ID is not 0. So let's add this function, and here we need to import the Axios. We are using the API that we just built. We are passing the ID, and we will conditionally execute this function and resetting the form values. We will add the form after completing our functions. So now let's execute this, and the ID is not 0. So let's add a use effect here, and let's import use effect. And here we are checking if the user is 0, then we are setting the form values to the default values, and else we are fetching the user. Now we will add function when the form is submitted. So let's add this function. So on submit, this is the function name. So let's import this submit handler from React hook form, and it will be type of user. It will receive the data, and we are assigning the ID before sending it to the API. So in our we will pass this data in our parent component. So we will receive this actually from the props, and there we will update that or call the API for updating. So the job of this form is to pass the data to the parent component when the submission is done. So that was our function for this component: use effect, one fetch user, and one on submit. Now let's add the markup. Now obviously we will start with form, so let's close it with form, and inside form first we will add a label. If the ID is 0, we will output add new user. If the ID is not 0, then we will output edit user. After this label, we will add this markup for name input field. So first there's a label, nothing so complex, and then there's a simple input type of text, and where this is ID, and we are registering the name field and putting the validation and message. If you are not familiar to React hook form validation, please search for it. You'll find a lot of tutorials out there. And after the input, we are conditionally outputting if any errors are there regarding to this input. Now let's save this. Now we will put the markup for emailed field. So this is the markup for email field, the same label email, and there's the input, and the type here is not text, it's email, and we are registering and we are giving a key email, and we are setting two form validation here. One is for required and one is a regular expression for validating the email. So if you put something invalid string or invalid email, we will have this message invalid email address, and then we have the error for email field. Now let's add the markup for age field. So here I'll paste it and format it. If you don't know how to format it, you can press Shift Alt and F, and that will do your job. Let's save this and let's see. This is label and the same type of input. At this case, the type is number. We're registering it, and here we have required, and in addition to that we have a mean value. I've just assumed that you will not add user below 18. So that's it. Now let's add the submit button. So here this is the submit button. So let's save this and close it. Now we will add another component which will be the parent component of user form. So let's call this user list.tsx, and let's generate the markup. Save this. Now first let's declare a state variable to hold the list of users, and let's add the import, and let's also add import for user. Now let's add a function for getting all the users. So let's paste it. So let's import Axios, and it is actually for getting the users from, we are using the API endpoint for getting all users and setting this inside this state variable. We will add another state variable for selected user. So we'll call this user ID, and initially we are passing 0, so no user is selected. if for editing or creating we will update this user ID. So let's save this. Now let's add a use effect for initially calling this function. So let's import use effect, save this. Now we will add some function for opening the model. So let's add this first and explain. So this is for opening the model for editing mode. I mean, we are setting the user ID and then we are finding this element and show the model, I mean opening the model. And for the new user, when the user clicks on new user or add user, then we will set the user ID to 0 and we will open this model after setting the user. Now we will have another model for opening the confirmation dialog for deleting a user. So we are setting the user ID and then we are opening this model. Now we don't have these two models yet, we will add it very soon. First we are just completing our methods that we will need. Now let's add a function for updating the user. So we are calling this handle user update. So the route is different. We are wrapping this inside try catch block. So if something goes wrong, we are we are logging the error in the console. Let's add the markup now. So inside div, first we will add a user label and a button to create new user. When the button is clicked, this function is triggered and it is opening the model as create mode, you can say, because we are setting user ID 0 before opening the model. We will add the model very soon. And after this div, we will output the users in a table. So it's very simple. There's a table. I've added two tailwind classes, table zebra. You can optionally remove this one. There's a 4 column, you can say, name, age, email, and this is for action. And after that, inside tbody, we are iterating from this user's state variable and we are outputting them. And in the last column, we are outputting two buttons. One is for open edit, user edit, and we are passing the user, and the last button is for deleting. So this will open the delete model. We are also passing the user. Well, now after the table, let's add the dialog for user model. So this is pretty simple. It will hold the user form. Let's import this. So nothing too fancy. The ID should be same as here, user model. You can name differently. If you name it differently here, you will have to update it in two places, here and here. The open editor, edit user, and open new user in these two functions. So be careful about this, and you need to add this class name model, and then there's a div with class model box. There's a form of method dialog, and this is for closing the model. It's necessary to put this button inside this form and with dialog method. It's there, Daisy UI. You can search for model in the Daisy UI official documentation, and you will find this type of instructions there. And after the closing button, we are outputting our user form. After this dialog, it will be something like this. So it will have the ID. So this is for closing the model, and we are outputting that a level. for the confirmation, and after this 2 there's the button which will actually trigger this delete user function, that is here. Ultimately when you confirm the delete, it will be deleted. We don't need anything else. Let's save this. Now let's update our page file, the main page file. I will delete all of this inside main, or you can delete everything including main, and let's delete this image input also. Let's save it. Now inside main we will have a div with class container and margin horizontal mx auto. Now let's import the users list from components. Let's save this and run this. So npm run dev. Let's try to browse our project. And we can see an error. We have to use this client for the user list component. So let's go to this user list and let's add this in the top with quotation, and let's save this and try to reload. And I think our application is complete. Let's try to add a user. So let's first try without anything. So the validations are there. Let's add user 1 and call this user1@gmail.com, and let's put age 20, submit, and here our insert is working. Now let's try to create another user. So user2 and user2@gmail.com, and we can put this 18, and this is also working. Now let's try to edit this user2, and let's edit this 2 and age to 19, and you can see this username and age is changed. And now let's try deleting one. So let's try to delete this. If we close this, it's working. Now let's try this. This is also working. So let's delete this. So delete this one, and if we refresh, yeah, everything is working.